All right, welcome to day 2 of our light painting movie making here. Hopefully you've already followed all the instructions in the previous day's video and you are ready to tackle what we need to do today. First thing we need to do is we need to reopen our movie project that we started yesterday. Because this is an already started movie, you're not going to do that by clicking on the little add media here. Whoops. Little add media here. That's only when we're starting a new project. We've already got a movie that we've saved. It'll be your final movie.psd. You can either just double click on it in Bridge or go to File, Open in Photoshop, or just click and drag it in there. You open that bad boy up however you want. And if everything opened right, you should have all of your slides and everything down here in your timeline. If you don't have your timeline, if it's not showing up, again, just come up and go to Window, Workspace, and either choose Motion, or if it's already on Motion and it's still not showing up, click on Reset Motion. And that will get that to show back up. And let's go through and make our slide or our production here a little bit better. First thing I want you to do is I want you to take a look at your title and decide if your title looks good. And by that I mean I want you to go through and see if there's any slides that just don't quite fit in. Maybe like right in here, maybe this L is just not in the right spot for me and I don't want it. So I'm actually going to get rid of it. So if you just didn't draw some of your title slides very good, I'm going to go ahead and just click on this one that I want to get rid of. And I'm just going to press delete on my keyboard. And that slide is now gone. And that only leaves me with 2 of that slide though. I've got this one and this one. And those are the only 2 I have. And I actually want a couple of them. I actually want about 4 of this slide where that's just the FAL before I get into all of them. So what do I do since I just deleted one and I only have 2 and I want 4? Well, it's actually pretty simple. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate both of these. So I'm going to make an extra copy of them. Then I'm going to spread them out and then there will be 4, but it will look like it's 4 unique slides. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I click on this clip right here in my timeline and come over and look at my layers palette, you can see Light Painting 17 is the one that is selected. What I want to do is I want to duplicate Light Painting 17. To do that, I'm just going to right click on it and I'm going to come up and choose Duplicate Layer right here in my on this right click menu. So I'll click on that. This box will pop up and I'll just press OK. And you can see in my layers palette that Light Painting 17 and Light Painting 17 copy are right next to each other. I don't want that. I actually want it to go Light Painting 17, then 19, and then Light Painting 17 copy. I can do that a couple different ways. I can either just click right here in my layers palette and drag it so that it's up above layer 19, or you can also click and drag clips around out here on the timeline. Whichever way works better for you, feel free to do it. And you can see now 17 is in there twice, but it doesn't look like it because 19 is in between those 2, and it breaks it up. Now I'm going to do the same thing with Light Painting 19. I'll come over here, click on this Light Painting 19, and I'm actually, instead of right-clicking and choosing Duplicate Layer, I'm just going to press Control-J on my keyboard. That does the same thing, that automatically duplicates that layer for me. And again, I don't want those right next to each other, so I'm just going to bring this one up and put it right here above Light Painting 17 copy. And now I have 4 of that slide, but they all look different because they're not right next to each other, and that makes my slideshow look a little bit better. So go through the rest of your title and decide, do I have any that need to be replaced, and do I have some that I can duplicate so that my title shows up for the correct amount of time? I probably need to do that right here on my complete title because it looks like I only have 3 of my actual title here, and I need about 5 of those. So I'm going to just come through and just go through and do the same thing we just did before. Click on this, press Control-J to duplicate it, move it up a couple slides so it's not right next to that one. Then maybe I'll go to this next one, Control-J to duplicate it, move it up here, and there you go. Now I have 5 copies of my complete title so that it shows up a little bit longer. So go through your title, pause the video, go through your title, check it, make sure everything is good, and when you're ready, we'll move on. Okay, before we go on to this next step, do me a favor, put your cursor right over your video up here and roll your scroll wheel on your mouse and see if your image zooms in or zooms out like this, like mine is doing. If it does not, press Control-K on your keyboard real quick. This will pop up and you'll click on Tools right here and just check the box that says Zoom with Scroll Wheel. That'll make this next step a lot easier. So I'll just press OK there. And here we go. Now some of you may have some images in your slideshow that look something like this. Maybe you shot most of your slideshow horizontally, but you did a few images vertically. And now you've got these weird bars on the side and your image is not filling up the entire canvas. Well, the good news is when we finish our video, this is automatically going to all be filled in with black. So we don't need to worry about there being an empty space there. But we do need to worry about the fact that our entire slide does not fit on our canvas. You can see if I move this image right here, there's part of it that's not showing up on my canvas. So I need to make it so that all of these images that are the wrong size will show up on my canvas here in my film. So what am I going to do? I could go through and move each one at a time, but that would be a lot of work. What I want to do is move them all at the same time. So I'm going to come over here and look at my layers palette. You can see these 5 images are the ones that don't fit. And I bet this will sound familiar to you. I'm going to click on the first one, hold down Shift, and click on the last one. And that's going to select all 5 of those for me. Then I'm just going to press Control-T on my keyboard. And you can see the problem is that we can't see the corners of my Control-T. And we all know that you never use Control-T without holding down Shift and dragging from the corners. So I'm just going to zoom out by rolling my scroll wheel towards me. And now I can see my corners, which means now I can hold Shift and I can click and drag to resize. Remember, if you don't hold down Shift, then this happens and bad things happen to your photos. And Mr. Johnson gets really, really angry. So Control-T, we're going to hold down Shift, but we're actually also going to hold down the Alt key. If I hold down Shift and Alt when I click and drag, it's going to resize all 4 corners for me rather than just the one corner. You can see if I just do Shift, it only does that one corner. But if I do Shift and Alt, it resizes all of them right towards the center for me. Then I don't have to worry about making sure my image is centered. And again, I'm not going to resize this so that it fills up my whole canvas, because this is going to get filled in with black later, and it looks better to leave it like that than it would be to resize it so that it fills up the whole thing. So I'll just press Enter to tell it that I'm done, and I'm now done with those images, and I can move on with the rest of my slideshow. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to go through my slideshow, and I want to go through and check each slide to make sure that it's about the right brightness. You can see as I'm scrolling through these slides here, all of a sudden I'm going to come across one that's a little bit too bright. See how much brighter this one is than the other ones? Part of the problem is that they got the flash in the photo. But I want to go through and I want to make that one match the rest of my slides here. So I'm going to adjust this slide. Remember, if you want to make adjustments on a slide, you have to put the playhead over it and you have to also click on the slide itself. And if I do both of those things, I can then come up here to the top and go to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And I can now move this middle slider to either darken down or brighten my image. And I'm going to darken this one just a bit, try to get it to match the previous one. I'm not going to get the floor to match because that's just a problem with the flash. But I'm looking at his face here and I can see that matches a little bit better than it did before and looks a little bit nicer. So I'm just going to keep going through these. And look at this, you can see quite a bit of difference between those two. So I might come in here and click on this one and do a little Control-L as well to get my levels adjustment up and darken this one down just a little bit. And I'm just going to go through each one of my slides and try to make sure the brightness of them matches what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to get my slideshow to look like. So pause the video, take some time, go through your slides, make sure they all look pretty good. And then when you're done with that, we'll pick it back up and go on to the next. Okay, some of you will remember when we were doing the actual light painting that I told you that if you painted something in one color but that you wanted to go back and change the color later on in Photoshop, that you could do that and that it would actually be pretty easy. And guess what? It is. I'm going to come to this slide and let's say I wanted this to be a red tree but there was no red flashlights. So I just painted it green knowing that I'd be able to fix it later. And so I want to change this green to red right here. So again, I'm going to put my playhead over the clip I want to edit. I'm going to click on that clip as well. And this time I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue, and Saturation. And watch what happens as I move the hue slider around. You can see anything with color in it is changing color. The white and the black are not changing. They don't have any color. They're just white and black. But this on the floor right here and then the color up here are changing colors as I move the hue slider. If you can't quite get the color you want by just moving the hue, you can always check the colorize box right here. I like to crank up the saturation on that just so I can see a little bit better what I'm trying to do. and then move this slider around too, and that gives me a nice red right there. But you can see that also adjusted the white. If you check the colorize box, that will affect everything a little bit more than not checking it. So what do we do if we want to change the color of the top part, but not change the color of the bottom part? How do we do that? I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel on this. And I'm going to come over here onto my toolbar on the left-hand side. And the 1, 2, 3, third tool down right here, it's the lasso tool. Be careful, it's not this tool. It's the one right above it, the lasso tool. It's below the square. Its keyboard shortcut is L. If all else fails, just click on L and you will select it. I'm going to zoom in pretty close to my green here. And I'm going to draw a selection around the green. I'm going to try not to get very much of the white. Obviously, I'm going to have to get some. We're not trying to be professionals here. I'm just going to do a rough selection around the green. And now I'm going to come up again and go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. And now when I move my hue slider, you can see only the stuff that is inside of the selection is getting affected. So if I come and check my colorize box, only what's inside of what I drew here is going to be affected. I can crank up my the saturation so it's a little bit more obvious to see. And then I would press OK. And if you want to make this go away, you got a couple different options. You can either click outside of it, or you can press Control D on your keyboard. And I did get a little bit of the white, but I'm not going to worry about that too much, because really what I wanted is to get this to turn red. So if I was going to stick with that, I would now need to go through and do that on each one of my slides that has the green of the tree in it, and go through and change the color of that. This is also handy for getting rid of things. So see in this slide right here, you can see I can see a little bit of one of the models that was helping me paint this. So I want to get rid of that guy in this slide. So again, I'll put my playhead over it. I'll click on it. And I'm going to use levels to darken this down, but I do not want to darken the entire slide. Instead, I just want to darken this guy. So I'm going to grab my lasso tool again, come in here, draw a lasso around his leg, and I can see his arm up there. I don't want to get that part of the tree, so I'll just draw a selection like that. Pretty rough selection, not trying to do a real good job. Just go to Image, Adjustments, Levels, and watch what happens as I darken this down. That guy kind of just fades into the darkness. Press OK, and I wonder if I could do the same thing here. I bet I could if I want to get rid of that. Image, Adjustments, Levels, or Control L, and there we go. I faded that into darkness. And Control D to make the selection go away. And that looks a lot nicer than it did before. So go through, use your lasso tool, use your levels, use your hue and saturation. Go through and get each of your slides looking as nice as you possibly can. You do want to make sure that everything looks good on each slide. Don't leave stuff behind that doesn't belong, because you want to make sure your film looks as good as we possibly can. Okay, the last thing we did on day 2 of this project is the most time-consuming part. I would imagine most people probably didn't finish it. But right now, each clip is showing up for 5 seconds, which is way too long for our slideshow. We need to make this way shorter. In fact, we need about 4 clips per second. So to do that, unfortunately, we have to go through and adjust each one individually, which is a bit annoying, but we don't really have any options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this little triangle right here. I'm going to zoom way in on my timeline by moving it to the right. I only want to be able to see about 1 or 2, maybe 3 clips at the most. And what I'm going to do is start with my first clip. I'm going to put my cursor right on the right edge of it. You can see that little bracket. It's open facing to the left. That means that if I click and drag, I'm going to be making this clip shorter. If it's open facing to the right and I click and drag, I'm actually affecting the clip next to it. So just keep an eye on that. Make sure the bracket is open facing to the left, and then just start clicking and dragging. And I'm looking at that number right there that says duration. I want a duration of 00:08. It's just about right. So just like that. So there you go. Now I'll come to my next one and bring this one over. Again, I'm going for a duration. Ignore the end. That's the total time so far. I'm not interested in that one. I'm interested in just the duration, getting that to 00:08. And unfortunately, you're just going to have to go through and do this for every single one of your slides. It's a really good idea to every 4 or 5 slides that you do, or every 2 or 3 minutes that you spend on this, you probably want to come up and do a little file save just so you don't lose all your progress. This is kind of mind-numbing work, and it would suck to get halfway through this and have to start all over. So I'll just do a quick little file save. You can see it already saved right up for me. And that's it. If you got to this point, you are good to go. Go ahead and finish this up, adjusting all your slides to the right duration, and you are all caught up.